First, we talked about advocacy that can become an important part of our everyday process in our libraries. But sometimes we're faced with a crisis. Our library program is threatened with being cut, budgets are reduced, and it's important to have some strategies in place when we go beyond everyday advocacy. First off, when you're faced with a crisis situation, it's important to consult all the professional materials you can find from your professional library organizations. They've already have many materials prepared for you that can be helpful. Second of all, look for other models that exist because often you can get very clever and helpful ideas from them. For example, in Australia, the Hub Campaign for Quality School Libraries has done a great deal of work in this area. The Spokane Moms in Washington State have published a lot of information about their efforts to help fund school libraries in their area. SaveOurLibraries.org is a website that collects stories of library advocacy from all over the country. And New Jersey's librarians have made a concerted effort to advocate for their library programs. There are many, many more models such as these, but by seeking them out, not only will you perhaps find other supporters, but you'll find good ideas that you can use in your own advocacy campaign. One reason it's important to be advocates is when our library programs are cut, it can actually affect other library programs in areas surrounding us. This was coined the broken window theory, and Rudy Giuliani, who former mayor of New York, actually implemented a policy to reduce vandalism in New York City. And as part of this program, they tried to cover up graffiti, repair windows, and freshen the appearance of neighborhoods where they were having a lot of crime. And they discovered that it reduced crime a great deal in those areas. And so the same theory applies to libraries. When one library program is cut, it gives permission to administrators in other nearby schools to cut their library programs. So not only do we need to remember to advocate for our own programs, but we need to be active in maintaining advocacy for libraries in our nearby areas as well. The OCLC organization suggests that when you're faced with advocacy efforts, it's important to understand what the problem is and then design a plan. Immediately, we tend to leap into action, but if you take a little time to really strategize and come up with a specific plan of action, your efforts can be much more focused. They suggest 3 parts to that. One is strategizing, one is quantifying your programs, and one is demonstrating the value of your programs to others. One suggestion I have for strategizing is to use your mission statement of your district or your school or your state or your country. We have information literacy missions that are embedded in almost all of our mission statements now. And it's a way to help people be mindful of having the values they place in their schools aligned with what the mission statement says. So if you're reducing library staff, is that really aligned with the school's value of producing independent lifelong learners, for example? The mission statement can be a powerful tool when you're advocating for your students in your library. Another important part of strategy is to know who you're actually appealing to. Who are your stakeholders? Is it your principal? Is it your headmaster? Is it your local school board? Is it legislators? Is it all of the above? It's important to know who they are, and then it's important to identify what their different values might be because they might be very different. As the Spokane Moms pointed out in their presentation at the Texas Library Association last spring, it's important to understand that different stakeholders have different priorities. And if you focus your message to their priority, it can make a difference. For example, the campus principal may be more focused on assessment, and the results of assessments. The school board may be more focused on pleasing the community. The legislative side may be more interested in college readiness, university readiness. So focusing on what it is those stakeholders are interested in your advocacy can make it much more targeted, specific, and effective. Another important step is to quantify what your program entails. How much bang for their buck are people getting? How much does your program cost? And how important are the effects of that program for our students, their future in the workforce, their future as leaders, etc. And then you need to demonstrate those quantities in specific and concrete ways, like this clever sign here, and also demonstrate it with story, with illustrations, with anecdotes, in whatever way that you can, statistics, so that your story gets told. It's important to also maximize your resources when you're engaged in an advocacy effort, and this may seem obvious to use social media like Facebook and Twitter. If you've already set up accounts and developed followers, it's a lot easier to use social media for your advocacy. Remember that visuals are very important in advocacy movement. Listservs are a great way to get the word out if you belong to listservs. There are all sorts of public forums in your community where you can go and speak and talk about the importance of libraries. If you have parent volunteers in your school, you have built-in advocates with them. And also professional organizations have a wealth of resources to offer you, of course. But also, if you share the dilemmas you're facing with the professional organizations, they can help publicize it. And sometimes that publicity helps your efforts in your local area. Another area of advocacy that's important, whether in a crisis or not, is that we think about influencing early and wide. And what I mean by that, and this was talked about in an earlier presentation, is we can't just hope to advocate at the point of sale when principals have entrenched beliefs about libraries or when businesses do. Where we need to be investing some energy is in influencing people while they're still in pre-service training to become teachers, while they're in training to become principals and headmasters, while they're working in advocacy groups before they become legislators, when they're lobbyists, for example. We need to be a part of the process in all those areas so that we are talking to people actively about libraries, information literacy, transliteracy, all those elements long before those people come into our schools. Another important element of our advocacy is simple. It's appreciation. Expressing appreciation for those who are helping us. Expressing it often and well. A recent study at Wharton University and Harvard Business School demonstrated that actually thanking people for favors they have done for you can almost double their compliance the next time you ask them to do something. That's a lot of bang for your buck for a very simple act of thanks. And so this is a tool that is sometimes overlooked, but we need to remember to offer constant appreciation for those that are coming forward and speaking up for our students. Last but not least, I like to think of this as the V8 moment. In all of our advocacy efforts, whether in a crisis or not, we need to remember what's really important. There's a drink called V8 juice, if you're not familiar with it. It's tomato juice, basically, in a small can. And there's an advertising campaign that shows someone drinking an unhealthy soft drink and then slapping themselves in the head and saying, "Wow, I could have had a V8." Well, our V8 moment is students. We're not advocating for our libraries. We're not advocating for our library positions or librarians or our staff. What we should be advocating for is our students and their right to information literacy instruction, their right to have access to good literature, their right to have access to our services. And that's where we need to keep our focus when we're talking to others about our libraries. Not about our jobs or how tired we are or how hard we're working, but about the great stories that our students are learning from us, that they're gaining skills from working with us in the library. And by keeping it focused on that, then we have our own V8 story to tell. The following are resources that might be helpful to you in exploring advocacy more, including a couple of articles that I wrote, as well as links to the virtual teacher cafe, links to articles that I used and some of the statistics that I was talking to you about. And I hope that you'll find them useful in your own work and advocacy. There's also a handout that will be uploaded, so you can look at those links there as well. Thank you, and I look forward to talking to you more about advocacy in the coming days. And let's remember, we're doing it for our students.